What is the worst thing you've ever had to experience? Got into a car accident and lost consciousness. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was my girlfriend at the time's body covered in flames. Good friend of mine committing suicide. We were 13. Just walked into a dead quiet school. Seat next to me was empty in 5th period. Nobody sat there the rest of the year. Still have the sticker she gave me a few weeks before she passed. I miss her so bad still. I'm mostly okay now, but a couple years ago I was in a hit and run. I woke up in the hospital a week later with no memory of the accident or anything after. The damages weren't as horrible as they could have been. But the worst part, aside from still having minor injuries 2 years later, the girl who literally caused me to get a TBI and possibly shoulder issues for life, was found guilty but didn't even get any jail time. My mom having to tell my grandfather, who had advanced Alzheimer's, that his wife of 50+ years had died a few months before. Over and over again. The look of heartbreak and sadness on his face every time he came to the realization that my grandmother was gone makes me well up typing this. Alzheimer's. I'm glad they're both in a better place at this point. I work with patients with advanced dementia, Alzheimer's. We and I don't tell patients anymore that their loved ones died. Instead we tell them their loved one will come at a later time or day, or that they are at work or grocery shopping. Takes away a lot of the pain and keeps patients a lot calmer. In 2016 I had a tooth removed in the back of my mouth and the hole got infected, causing an abscess that pushed my teeth apart. When I went to the hospital they told me if I had waited a few more days it would have split my face and broken my jaw. Pulling my grandpa's life support 2 days after Christmas. He gagged for air for 30 minutes until he died. My whole family was there. He had a massive brain hemorrhage in his sleep the night before. Brain dead on arrival at the hospital. Totally healthy until then. I had a shot of whiskey with him 2 days earlier. My best friend was murdered when I was a kid. He had a twin sister. We were like the three amigos. After he was killed I fell into a deep depression and started having sleep paralysis. Killer was caught and felt zero remorse at trial. I wanted to kill the guy. His sister and me never recovered our friendship. A bone marrow extraction. I was supposed to be asleep but they kept me awake for it and it was the most painful feeling ever. They also kept sticking the needle in the wrong places. And it was really thick so it hurt like a bitch. Got poked maybe 4 times. Taking care of my wife as she suffered from Alzheimer's. She was beautiful to the very end. Being diagnosed with cancer and going through chemotherapy during this coronavirus pandemic. I am young, and was healthy and extremely active before all this. I never got sick. The cancer was tough enough. But now I can't even see my friends or family who kept my spirits up. And I can't do the sports I love that kept me sane because they've either been closed skiing or are too crowded and too risky biking. It's the most isolating feeling in the world, and depressing. I'm terrified I won't make it out of this mentally the same, if at all. Each chemo decimates my immune system. Even a regular cut that gets infected could be life-threatening. Finding my mother dead on the bathroom floor. She went to the hospital with suspected food poisoning after having passed out at work. They admitted her and she stayed there for half a day before being sent home with what they concluded was food poisoning. I visited her at the hospital and spoke with her on the phone the day after. On the 3rd day she didn't pick up the phone. I went to her apartment and found her dead. She was 66 years old and I was 26 years old. She had no previous conditions. Autopsy concluded that she had been hemorrhaging in her intestines resulting in the stomach pain and suspected food poisoning. But no further conclusion was made. She got up during the night to get a glass of water. She must have passed out due to blood loss. At least I hope that she did, and that she wasn't conscious. I once had a call where 3 children died in one accident. 2 families. All the children were under the age of 2. I was stung by a tarantula hawk once and it was 5 minutes of the most excruciating pain I've ever felt. It sucks so bad. The official medical advice for getting stung is to lie down and scream until it's over so you don't accidentally hurt yourself. Was playing online with friends when the SWAT team raided my house. I woke up during an upper endoscopy while intubated. I didn't fully wake up. I just became conscious. Couldn't move or open my eyes. Had about 2 hours of feeling like I was suffocating while they finished the procedure. Had nightmares for a month and still don't sleep well. My mom died last week. Acute myeloid leukemia and myeloid sarcoma. Navigating visiting her in the hospital was hell. She was in respiratory failure and in a lot of pain due to her blood issues and tumors. I'm turning 29 in a few weeks. She was only 58. I miss her so damn much it hurts. What I would do to see her again. Heart attack. Still recovering emotionally as I've never experienced that kind of pain. It may seem like a small thing, but every time I get a chest pain, even mild, it scares me thinking that I may get a heart attack again. When I was 14, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. I remember the instant my parents told me at the kitchen table, and all my thoughts flooded to all the great things in life that I would miss if I died. Learning to drive, getting married, having kids, etc. It was absolutely horrifying. I had 4 really intense rounds of chemo that made my entire body hurt inside and out. Bone pain, muscle pain, stomach pain, and all the works. The up part about it is, I truly don't remember a lot from the experience. It's almost as if my mind wiped all the bad memories that I endured. All I know is that as soon as I would come home from the hospital each day, I would just lay down and do nothing because I had no energy to do anything else. All that being said, I did beat cancer, and I consider it to be the greatest achievement of my life. 2 months ago I just hit 5 years in remission, and I know I couldn't have done it without the support of my family and friends. So if there's anyone out there reading this and fighting the fight, you got this. 5th grade. Had a parasite for 9 months. Didn't know I had it or what it was. But it was just awful. I skipped nearly that entire school year. I didn't eat anything except an applesauce every other day or so. Barely any water. Always had an upset stomach but nothing to throw up. So I often threw up bile, which made my throat and mouth feel all burnt. I didn't do anything but puke and try to sleep. Didn't talk. Didn't watch TV. Nothing like that. It hurt way too damn much. What's worse was my dad had this bastard for 3 years. He's the type to suffer in silence though, and he kept going to work. He lost 30 pounds in those 3 years. If I hadn't caught that nasty thing, whatever it was, he would have had it for many more years most likely. I was on a fire department for a few years after high school. A decapitated 3-year-old at a car accident. Dad through the windshield. Basically eviscerated. And the mother with barely a scratch but screaming bloody murder. It broke me and I quit a few weeks later. I once got locked in a stable full of llamas just carpet bombing the floor. One wall was an electric fence, which I found out by touching. By the way, there were 20 llamas in a 10 by 10 meters around 32 feet stable. The floor was completely covered in llama shit. Waking up to my older sister explaining to my younger brother about death. My mom passed away the night before. My brother was 11 and I was 13. Living through my best friend's suicide. I'm no stranger to death and I've lost a lot of friends along the way. But suicide is different. Something about it makes it so much worse. And all you can do is blame yourself and hate yourself for not noticing the signs in time. I'll be 3 years in August and I still break down regularly. It's changed me as a person completely. And part of me died that day. I'll never get over it. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to understand it. Not the worst thing ever, but when I was young I heard my parents fight a lot. Grew up with a lot of shouting and my dad was usually the instigator. I think one of the more vivid memories I can remember, I was maybe 5 or 6 at the time and it was late. My dad was annoyed with our pup and he just tossed her aside, which she made a loud noise at. My mom was shocked and made it vocal but instantly got quiet. A little after that my uncle, my mom's brothers and I were playing the Wii together and my parents were in their room. Then I just heard screaming and shouting and lots of crashing noises. My uncle grabbed me immediately and took me to my room and tried to put me to bed ASAP, but before I was asleep it started getting worse, so he got up and made sure all the lights were off and just sat with me, holding me until it was over. I remember he was really tense. Which I now understand. I don't think I'll ever forget that feeling of just lying in bed in the dark and hearing only screaming and shouting and barking. It was like it was bouncing off the walls. The next morning my house was more quiet than normal. At the time I was a kid, so I was oblivious to the bruises and the abuse, but as I got older I learned the truth, and it has stuck with me since, and it got worse when I found out it was ongoing throughout my mom's pregnancies. I was lucky though. My parents never laid a hand on me or my brother. My dad has since done a complete 180 after we left him, and he hasn't raised a hand to anyone in almost 10 years. My mom's still going strong, and you'd never be able to guess what she went through by looking at her now. But those nights will always stick by me. Watching my dad slowly slip away and then having to tell the doctors to let him go because there was nothing they could do. Being in an emotionally abusive relationship. It's really hard to understand how bad it is from an outside perspective until you experience it. Kidney stones. Well, after going through this, I haven't gone through shit.